the divine souls. The last few days I've been explaining to you about the nature of worldly happiness. The reason is because throughout this whole speech I've been telling you that our divine goal is God realization, and when we become God realized we get perfect happiness. That's the only thing every soul wants, is to be perfectly happy, and that's only possible by attaining absolute supreme divinity. However, in order to attain God, you need to become surrendered to God, because that's the means of receiving His grace. His kripa is only received into a surrendered heart or a surrendered mind. So how to become surrendered? The mind will only become surrendered when it has faith in God. What kind of faith? That there is happiness in God, that He really exists, and we can attain Him. Right now we have more faith in the world, so we have, you can say that in our mind this feeling is there subconsciously that we don't need God because I have faith of finding happiness in this world. Happiness is our goal. That's it. Wherever we think we're going to find happiness, that's what we're going to become surrendered to. So since happiness is really the only thing we care about, when we see the world, we look for happiness from the world, and through that process of thinking about the world as a source of happiness, we become attached to it. The more times you think about a certain thing in that way, thinking that this thing will make me happy, the more attached you become to it. And then based on that attachment you have to that object or person, you experience happiness in meeting with them. Not because there's happiness in the person or in the thing. The happiness is a self-created experience because you created the attachment, and because of that attachment you experience happiness when you are with that person or you get that thing. If there was actual happiness in the thing, then it could never give you unhappiness, could it? But if you keep eating your favorite food and don't stop eating it, eventually that favorite food is going to make you very unhappy. Ulti ho jayegi. Then you'll be very unhappy. So how can you say there's happiness in that food when it can also make you unhappy? The same person who makes you happy can also make you unhappy. So there's no happiness in the thing or the person. The happiness is a self-created experience. But because it's self-created, it's very unstable. So that's why the happiness of this world doesn't last for very long, because our thinking changes. We become bored of something, or our thinking may change towards negativity about a person or thing, and then the happiness we get being with them is gone, and instead we start getting unhappiness. To whatever extent we believe a person is going to make us happy, to that extent we become attached to them, and that attachment is experienced as the feeling of love. If we start believing that this person is giving me less happiness, our love is also going to decrease. And then again we start thinking, oh no, they're giving me more happiness, then our love increases. So the two are tied together like a perfect equation. However much our self-interest is being satisfied through that person, self-interest being happiness, that much love we will have for them. I explained that all of this is important to understand because it's only when we realize the limitations of worldly happiness that we're prepared to look towards God for a greater source of happiness. As long as a person believes that perfect happiness can be obtained through enjoying worldly things, why would they ever surrender to God? They may come to the mandir, but only to ask God to give them more worldly things, which is not surrendering to God at all. when you go to the store to buy something, you're not surrendered to the cashier who's giving you that thing. Maybe you go and there's some things behind the counter, like at the general store, and you say, I want that thing, please give me that. He hands it over to you. You're not surrendered to him. You want that thing he's giving you. Same thing with God. If we're just asking him for worldly things, this is not an indication of surrender to God. It's further proof that we don't believe there's happiness in God. We believe there's happiness in this world. So we have to understand the limitations of worldly happiness. Only then our mind will loosen its attachments in this world, and only then it will be able to become attached to God. If the mind is already 100% attached in the world, how is it going to become surrendered to God? So along these lines, we also had to understand, and I explained to you yesterday, that it's impossible for any person in this world to always support you and always love you. Why? Because each person is under the effect of the three qualities of Maya, Sattva, Raj, Tam, which pervade every human mind. The good quality, selfish quality, and bad quality of Maya. And since these three qualities are always fluctuating, one becomes predominant and the other two are suppressed, and then it changes. Two people tend to get along during that time when they're both under the effect of the same quality, and that too in the same intensity. But how often does that happen? And you add to this the fact that everybody is being driven by their own inner urge to find happiness for themselves. It means that it's complicated to get along with another person in this world. It requires a lot of compromise and a lot of flexibility, yet we demand perfection. Why? Because we're looking for perfect happiness. And we've decided this person is going to make me happy. So even though we say, oh, nobody's perfect, and I know you're not perfect, I love you just the way you are. We say the words, but in our heart of hearts, we want perfection. Who doesn't? We want to be perfectly happy. And it's unspoken, but we want that from our friends and from our family. So this is an unrealistic expectation that leads to disappointment, anger, and disagreements in the family and with your friends. So we have to understand the reality that when a person is not in possession of perfect happiness, how are they going to give it to us? God is in possession of that. He can give us perfect happiness. So the world is a selfish place naturally. That's how it is. I'm not condemning the world. I'm just saying take it for what it is. Everyone in the world is inherently selfish because we all have to look out for our own happiness. One time Shivji said to Parvati that you want to see a sansar ka swarup kya hai? What is the nature of worldly people? Come on, let's go down on the earth. So they came, Shivji, Parvati, and Nandi. So they started off both riding on Nandi, Shiv and Parvati. So then the people of the world who saw them said, look at these two. They're so mean, both of them sitting on this poor animal. Don't they have any feelings? Oh, okay, so Parvati got off. She's walking behind. Shivji is riding the bull. Then people started saying, look at this guy, hatta khatta. And his poor wife is walking behind and he's just riding on his sawari. So Shivji said, Sunaya Parvati? Huh, Sunaya. Okay, you sit now, I'll walk behind. So now Shivji is walking behind Nandi and Parvati is sitting. Then people started saying, hey, dekho, dekho, hey, Kaliyug ka swarup, dekho, chaprasi ke saman, pati dev piche piche aa raha hai. Aur madam बैठी है महारानी की तरह. सुना है पार्वती? हाँ सुना है. Okay, so they both walked after that. Then people start saying, Dekho, dekho, ye dono bevkoof. They have a perfectly good sawari and they're both walking behind it. Shiv said, have you seen enough? She said, I've seen enough. Let's go back. So we expect everybody in this world to favor us all the time, but it's not possible. We should be amazed if someone does favor us. Yet we have the opposite expectation. We think everybody should love us and favor us, and when someone doesn't, we're so hurt. No, we should expect it. Jagadguru Shree Kripaluji Maharaj tells that when he first became Jagadguru at the age of 34, although he knew that it was the tradition that in the past Jagadgurus have always sat on a particular kind of throne, the Jagadguru Asan, Singhasan. He said, I don't want to seem pretentious, so I'm not going to sit on any big throne like that. He was traveling around giving speeches all over India. He said, I'll just sit on the stage or wherever they put me to sit, that's fine, and I'll give my speech. So then people started complaining, not the general public, but like scholars and other Mahatmas saying that you're disrespecting this tradition of Jagadguru. So Maharaji's devotees asked him that, please can we get you a Jagadguru Singhasan made and we'll transport it around wherever you're speaking. You can sit from the proper asan. So Maharaji said, okay. If the people want it, then it's fine. So he started giving speeches from the Singhasan. People started saying, oh, look at this guy sitting up there on the big golden Singhasan. Who does he think he is? So Maharaji said, now what do I do? So at that time, a war broke out between China and India. Maharaji said, oh, perfect opportunity. He donated his Singhasan to the defense fund. Then chutti. He said, then nobody could question why you don't have a Singhasan. Oh, I donated it. So it's impossible to please everybody all the time, or you can say it's impossible hardly to please a single person ever, because everybody has their own desires. And we have ours as well. And the truth is, only God can fulfill all of our desires, because He is the repository of divine bliss. So we've understood now about the nature of worldly happiness, and we know what the saints and scriptures say about God, that He is the source of divine happiness. So we have to try to get our mind attached to God. And so far, all the understanding or knowledge that I've given you, it's to give you this basic understanding so that your mind will understand logically why would it become attached to God instead of the world. And of course, to become attached to God, it has to keep thinking about God. Your mind has to think about God. It's an internal process. You think about Him, that He is happiness. If I attain Him, I could get perfect happiness. He is mine. He's my friend. He has been forever. To aid in this process and to make sure that we follow this path properly, we need the help of a certain type of personality. Ved says, Acharyavan Purusho Hi Veda. Only the one who has the help of an Acharya can know God. Acharya means a God-realized saint. Parikshya lokan karmachitan brahmano nirveda mayan nastya krita kritena tad vijnanartham sagurumeva bhigachet samit pani shrotriyam brahmanishtham. Mundakopanishad says, if you want to know God, you have to surrender to a God-realized saint. Why? Because there's no perfect happiness anywhere in this world. Parikshya lokan, great yogis have gone and explored not just the full extent of this world, but also even the celestial abodes, Swarg. And they returned and said, nope, no perfect happiness over there either. It's all Mayik. So if you want to know God, you need the help of someone who has already known God. Yasya deve para bhaktir yatha deve tatha gurau tasyaite kathita hyartha prakashyante mahatmanah. Ved again says, if you want to attain God, you need the help of a God-realized saint. You have to realize the divinity of that God-realized saint and surrender to them. Gita also says, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. The same thing. If you want to know God, you must surrender to the one who has already known God, the God-realized saint. The Bhagavatam says the same thing in different words. Tasmad gurum prapadyeta jigyasu shreya uttamam shabde pare cha nishnatam brahmanyupashamashrayam. Same exact thing. If you want to know God, surrender to that individual who has attained God. And Ramayana also concurs. Guru binu bhavanidhi tarai na koi jo biranchi shankar samahoi. No one can cross this ocean of Maya and reach God without surrendering to a guru. Even if they were to be as intelligent as Brahma or as renounced as Lord Shankar, they would still fail to reach God without a guru. So we understand the Shastras, the Vedas are telling us that we need a guru to find God. But we can also understand through logic, through our own experience from this world, how it would be impossible to do something like attaining God without the help of a guru. When you have any problem in this world, what do? You go to the experts. Nowadays, you probably go online. They have all kinds of expert websites for all different kinds of questions that you would have. But you go to the experts, either in person or online or some way. When you have a question that you can't answer, you go to someone who you think might have the answers. When you have a problem with your car, you take it to a mechanic. When you're ill, you go to the doctor. So what you're doing is you're putting your faith in someone else. You're asking them for help, or you can say in a way you're becoming surrendered to them. When you go to the mechanic, you don't know, right? The mechanic may tell you one thing. Do you have any way of verifying that he's right or wrong? The only way you have of verifying is that after he's done, your car runs properly. He may have fixed 10 things that didn't need fixing and charged you for that as well. How do you know? When you go to the doctor, you don't know if the doctor's right or wrong. The only thing you know is if you get better or you don't get better. That's it. So you put your faith in your mechanic. You put your faith in the doctor, or you surrender to him. It's the same thing with a spiritual thing. We have to learn how to find God. What have we ever learned in this world without a teacher? We couldn't even learn our ABCs or Kakha Gagha without a teacher. How would you know on your own how to write A? Your teacher had to show you. This is how lowercase a is formed. This is how uppercase A is formed. This is how cursive A is formed. 3 different kinds of A in English language, just to make it complicated. At least in Hindi, it's just ka. That's it. One ka. One ka. But we couldn't have learned any of that without a teacher. Such a simple material thing. And when it comes to spiritual things, tab hum log etaraj karte hain. No, I don't need a guru. I can find God without a guru. You couldn't learn A, B, C, D without a guru, but you can find God without a guru? Good luck. Why would we want to try such a thing? Such a thing as attaining God, and when there are divine personalities who have attained God, they have succeeded in doing what we want to do, why would we decide to try to accomplish that without asking the help of someone who's already walked that path? They already know the ins and outs of the whole thing. Why wouldn't we take their help, their guidance? So although surrender is a scary word for a lot of people, but surrender simply means taking someone else's help, which means you have some amount of faith in them. Just like when the doctor prescribes medicine for you, maybe he gives you one little pill and says, take one a day. You're thinking, one a day? Such a small little pill in my big body? What is one a day going to do? I'll just drink I'll swallow all the pills at once. I'll get better instantly. You'll end up in the morgue instantly is where you'll end up. So you see, we have faith in what the doctor tells us. We surrender to the doctor's instructions. It's the same thing with following the instructions of a spiritual master. The spiritual guide tells us, this is what you have to do if you want to attain God. Then if we do it, we get cured, like you follow the doctor's prescription, you get cured. You don't do it, you don't get cured. So you follow the saint's instructions, you attain God. You don't follow the saint's instructions, you stay here in this world under the bondage of Maya. There's nothing more to surrender than that. Following the instructions. So it's not a difficult thing to do if we understand the importance of finding God in this life. But the question becomes, what is a true saint? What is the qualification of that person who could be our spiritual guide? We can't just go and ask anybody, how do I find God? Can you please tell me? We're all in the same boat here in this world. We all want God. We don't know how to get to God. So we have to ask the right person. The right person, according to all of those verses that I quoted to you before, like Ved says, Shrotriyam Brahmanishtham. It mentions two qualities of the Guru. Shrotriyam means knowledgeable in all the scriptures and able to extract the essence out of those scriptures and present it to ordinary people like us so that we can understand and practice accordingly. That's Shrotriya. He must also be Brahmanisht, means God realized. Not just a theoretical knowledge of the scriptures, he must have actually experienced God. Let's say someone read a book on driving an 18-wheeler. Those of you who have learned to drive, you probably learned to drive a car, like a small sedan or something. Imagine learning to drive a big truck, an 18-wheeler, semi. Let's say someone read a whole book on driving an 18-wheeler but has never gotten behind the wheel, has never driven anything. And he starts walking around telling people how to drive a truck, how to drive a big 18-wheeler on the highway through the city. What a ridiculous concept. Who would want to listen to such a person? However, if he's very articulate and he remembers all that theory from the book, he may impress a lot of people. They may say, oh, this guy really knows what he's talking about. He doesn't know a single thing. If you put him behind the wheel, he'd crashed that truck. He wouldn't know how do I work these air brakes? How do I shift the gear until you've actually got in there and tried to shift the gear? So it's all about practical experience. It's the same with attaining God. Someone can memorize many mantras of Vedas, all kinds of shlokas from Gita and Puranas, Ramayana, Dohas and Chaupai, and impress lots of people with his memory. But what's great about a memory? You have to have the practical experience of God. Only then you can guide people towards God. So the true saint is Brahmanisht. Brahmanisht means established in God. The saint's mind is never separate from God. Na chalati bhagavat padar vinda lavani mishardhamapiya savaishnavagriya. The Bhagavatam says that a true saint always has his mind attached to the lotus feet of Shri Krishna. Even for one nimesh, even for a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second, his mind is never separate from God. This is Brahmanisht. The Gita said the same thing. Jnanina tattva darshina. He must be a jnani, he must have total knowledge of all the philosophy, but he must also be tattva darshina. He must have seen God. Seen. That's what I mean when I say you experience God. You see God. You'll remember from a few speeches ago when I was talking about how to prove the existence of something. Pratyaksha praman means seeing with your own eyes. Shabda praman means you take the word of the experts. But in the case of God, initially we take the word of the experts, the saints and scriptures, to form a faith in God's existence. But then we follow the path to God, and when we reach God, we get the pratyaksh praman. We see Him face to face. So a saint is tattva darshina. He's actually met God. The Bhagavatam says, Shabde pare cha nishnatam brahmanyupashamashrayam. Shabde, he has the theoretical knowledge of the philosophy, and pare, he also knows the supreme divine tattva, God. So that's the theory, that's the definition, or the qualities of a true saint who is qualified to be the guru. However, how do we recognize such a saint? How do we find such a saint? Generally, people in the world, they look for certain outer characteristics of a saint. They may understand, or they may not understand, that a saint is supposed to be God realized. But they all look for things like, how is he dressed? Is he wearing yellow? Is he wearing white? Is he wearing a dhoti? Is he wearing a lungi? Is he what is he wearing? Is he married or not married? Is it a man or a woman? Are they living in the jungle or a cave in Himalayas? Or are they living in a city, in a household? People look at these external things and they think, oh, if someone has attained God, then our Vedas tell us, Yada pashye pramuchyante. When someone has attained God, he becomes akamaha. He has no desires, no anger. So they look at that too. Okay, they're trying to judge the saint's behavior. Is he without anger? Is he without jealousy, without desires? Okay, he must be a saint. Oh, and he's also wearing yellow. Oh, and he also has a beard. And he's not married. He's living in the jungle. Like we're ticking off boxes, right? Check, check. Beard? Check. Long robes? Check. Not married? Check. But none of this means anything, because the saint is a saint from inside, and if you look at our history, there have been all kinds of saints, and in fact, I would say there have been more saints who have not met these conditions that we believe are characteristics of a true saint than there have been saints who have met these conditions. In other words, there have been more God-realized saints who were married with husband or wife and kids than there were saints who were sannyasis. The most famous, the greatest, the highest class of saints, you'll learn later when I'm explaining about bhakti, are the gopis of Braj. The highest class of saint. Married women, uneducated, with husbands and children. And they were the highest class of saint. Families, grihasthis. Prahlad, Dhruv, Ambarish, King Janak. These are all famous examples, not just of grihasthis, but of those who ruled kingdoms and empires. So you would think, oh, if he's God realized, what's his need to rule an empire? Why would he have greed for power? So we judge and we fail because we're not qualified to judge a saint. It would be like a 6-year-old trying to judge his father's or his mother's knowledge. His father or mother may be a professor at school, and maybe that day the child has learned something at school, like 2 + 2 = 4 or something, and he comes home and he wants to know, oh, Father, did you know 2 + 2 = 4? He wants to test his father's knowledge. His father is a mathematics professor in the university. So his father just smiles. Oh, really? 2 + 2 = 4? Oh, that's very good, my son. The son has no idea of the level of his father's knowledge. When he reaches to that level, then and only then he will understand what his father knows, and he could judge his father's knowledge. It's the same when we try to judge a saint by what they're wearing, how they walk, how they talk, what their lifestyle is, if they're married or not. In fact, none of that means anything. Tomorrow I'm going to give you examples of saints getting angry. Saints who behaved in a greedy way. They crossed all the borders of what we believe a saint is supposed to be within. And the examples I'm going to give you are beyond question. The saints and divine personalities whose examples I'm going to give you, you don't question that they're saints, you know they are. I'll give you examples of Bharat, Lakshmana, Ram Parivar, Arjun, Shri Krishna, Sanakadik Paramahans. So we know these are divine personalities, but when they are defying the conventions of what we think, how we think a divine personality is supposed to act, it shows us that no, we're actually, if they're doing this and they're divine, it means they're beyond our intellect. We can't understand their behavior, and it's better for us not to judge them. And the reason I'm going to share these stories with you is so that you don't make the mistake of trying to judge whether someone is a saint or not by looking at external things, how they act, how they dress, etc. Because then you can get fooled. You may judge someone who is a saint and think, oh no, they're not a saint. And someone may be pretending to be a saint, and because he knows what ordinary people think are the characteristics of a saint, the external characteristics, they behave according to that, to try to fool you. So that we don't get caught in these traps, I'll share some of these stories with you tomorrow, and we'll also move on and understand how we actually can. There is a way to identify a true saint, so how we can do that, I'll explain further tomorrow. बोलिए श्रीमत सद्गुरु सरकार की जय।